Streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and blasttheradio.com, this is The Lowell Green Show. The number to call and be heard around the world is 613-413-2217. Or email Lowell at blasttheradio.com. And now, here is Lowell Green.
Hey, John, good to be back. I have some questions for you this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, in your opinion, should I be free to say what I want on this program? Should John Milkey be free to say what he wants on his online radio station? Should you be free to say what you want on this and other similar programs? Should you be able to say what you want on a podcast? Should you be able to show whatever videos you want on Facebook, YouTube, etc.? I ask these questions because the Trudeau government right now is joining with the NDP to stop me and you and everyone from saying what they wish on platforms like this, on TikTok, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Twitch, and on Facebook. The second most dangerous man in Canada, green energy radical nutcase Stephen Guilbeault, has introduced Bill C-11, which, according to its own definition, and here I quote, so this is a definition in the bill itself, quote, Bill C-11 will provide powers to the CRTC, Canadian Radio and Television Commission, to control all audio-visual content on the internet. Think of that. Let me just repeat this. Don't believe any of the bullpappy or whatever the heck it is that the Liberals and the NDP and their supporters are spreading about this. This is word for word what Bill C-11 says about itself. Quote, Bill C-11 will provide powers to the CRTC to control all audio-visual content on the internet. That would include this program, John. That would include your program, Mr. Milkey.
Mm-hmm.
The CRTC, let's make no mistake about it, the CRTC is today a Liberal government body. The Liberals appoint it, and in many cases, either Liberals, former Liberals, or members of the NDP sit on the CRTC. The CRTC, I quote, is a Liberal government body which today controls radio and television in Canada, among other things, establishing rules concerning what can be said, establishing content rules, regulations concerning the number of commercials, determining a minimum amount of Canadian content, and increasingly establishing rules concerning diversity. The rules as they apply today to radio and television, believe me, and I speak from experience, personal, first-person experience. The rules as they apply today to radio and television are frightening, undemocratic, geared today to provide favor and advantage to the Liberal Party of Canada. Make no mistake about it, please, okay? I've had more than 60 years of conducting a radio show, sometimes a TV show, under the thumb of the CRTC. Some of the rules are so ridiculous, and here I just give you one example. In one instance, director of the CRTC instructed me that any time I was going to say or use anything that is satire, I must warn people in advance. It was up to me, I was told, to ensure that everyone who was listening to the show fully understood what I was saying and what my intent was. There was no responsibility on behalf of the listener. Any complaint, no matter how ridiculous, no matter how repetitive, no matter how well advised, excuse me, had to be addressed and dealt with. There were times when, on a daily basis, someone who didn't like me would phone in a complaint or write in a complaint and had to be dealt with. Our news director, Steve Winogron, on some days was almost fully occupied just responding to one particular complainant. There was one guy, an old union guy, he didn't like me. Didn't like what I said, didn't matter what I said, he didn't like it, and he would almost on a daily basis issue a complaint to the CRTC. Every single complaint had to be dealt with. We had to send an explanation to the CRTC, what we had said, what our intent was, and how then the follow-up letter to the complainant. That's the kind of bullshit that goes on with the CRTC today in radio and television. It's one of the reasons that, as you have said, John, radio and television today in Canada is a dying industry.
Yep.
Not fully the responsibility of the CRTC, but certainly there it is. It's under the jurisdiction, and it's a failing industry. Let me tell you, if Bill C-11 passes and assumes control of this show, as it says it will, I'm off the air. I'm finished. Make no mistake about it, folks. 60 years of having to follow Liberal and NDP rules through the CRTC is enough for me. I'm not going to do it again. Not going to do it again. The only reason I do this show and enjoy it is that I am free to say what I wish. There is freedom here, the kind of freedom that that Pierre Poilievre is talking about, and a lot of the Liberals don't understand what he's talking about. Freedom! Say what I wish. The ramifications are intense. If Bill C-11 passes, and it appears that it will, the ramifications are intense. Forget me. Okay, I'm a drop of water in the ocean. Leading Silicon Valley business people have compared Bill C-11 to the kind of censorship that exists today in North Korea and now in Russia. How do you like that? University professors speaking out against the bill, calling it extremely dangerous, extremely undemocratic. The Conservatives are doing everything in their power to kill the bill. But as you know, the Liberals and the NDP have joined forces, and they say they're going to press forward. Let's be very honest. The Liberals, and now the Liberals NDP, they want control. They want to control me. They want to control Milky. They want to control you, what you say, what you show. Don't forget, and let me repeat this again, because there's still confusion out there. This is what Bill C-11 says about itself. Quote, there's nothing unequivocal, there's nothing equivocal about this. Bill C-11 will provide powers to the CRTC to control all audio visual content on the internet. How can there be any mistaking as to the intent? Control all, A-L-L, all audio visual content. This is audio visual content, right, John?
It absolutely is.
So that's what CRTC, in other words, forget the CRTC, that's the Liberal government, the Liberal NDP government. They will control what you and I can say, but more importantly, what you can say. They will be able to control what you say. And one of the things that you have to be extremely careful about radio television today is not to offend anyone. That's why increasingly radio broadcasts have become blander and blander and blander. Because it's almost impossible today to say anything in any context that doesn't offend someone. How can you say anything that doesn't offend someone? But I'm going to tell you, you offend anybody. Well, anybody that's offended today, radio and television, you got to answer. In some cases, you have to take the program and ship a piece of it to the CRTC or the whatever the hell it is. Same thing.
Canadian Broadcast Standards Council.
Canadian Broadcast Standards Council, which operates under the CRTC. It's just a wing of it.
Oh, no, Lowell, that's a jury of your peers.
Oh, baloney. baloney. It's all liberal appointed. The whole
I
thing
know.
is all liberal appointed. I'll never forget the time I used satire. This was many years ago. It was a terrible. You may remember. Um, this was anyway. I used satire, and I admit that I used satire to the extreme. Well, major complaint. The National Post even called me a racist, and it was fully. It's like saying, the lovely weather for ducks, or somebody's got a terrible tie, and you say, "Oh, geez, what a great tie." I mean, it's satire, right? I use satire. I was told, and they knew it. Nonetheless, the complaints poured in there. I had to go on and apologize on the air. It was painful. And all the time, and of course, some members of the media, the liberal media, they called me oh, it was terrible. I went through hell. And so finally, we brought someone on and to talk about it. And I was told at the time on the air for everybody to listen. This is not something he told me privately. That anytime I use satire, at any time, I must warn people in advance. This is satire. Well, if you excuse me, if you warn people in advance that it's satire, it's not satire
Right.
anymore, right?
Yeah, joke's not funny if you have to explain the joke.
And the other thing that really bothered me was that all of the responsibility to understand what I was saying, no matter what language barrier might exist, all the responsibility to understand not only what I said, but my intent rested with the listener, not with me. So if I said something and the listener didn't understand, that was my fault. I'm using me because this is what will happen with the CRTC controlling you on Facebook, on TikTok, on YouTube. That's what will happen. Folks, if they can do it to me, they'll do it to you. Don't ever kid yourself.
Well, that's what they want, right? Like the people who are posting in the comments right now, cheering on Pierre Poilievre for prime minister. If the government takes objection to that, I mean, you think Facebook jail is bad? They can have you removed from the platform
Oh,
entirely.
absolutely, absolutely. They just kick you right off.
Yep.
And and like the one thing that you've got to be very careful of today is not to offend this prime minister. I mean, I offended the prime minister almost on a daily basis, and we all know what happened to me. They only put up with this so long, and I'm gone. Rob Snow offended the prime minister. He's gone. Lose the jobs. Okay, that's just what they can do to one person. I repeat, they can do it to me. They can do it to you, and they will. Just ask people in the convoy what happened when you offended the prime minister. I mean, let's be very clear. There's no question that the convoy they should have left. I'm talking about the first one left long ago. But I mean, the only reason that there was so much attention and so much angst, bit of horn honking, okay, big deal. But it was because it offended the prime minister. F Trudeau. We saw that all the time. That was the only reason. Same thing with this rolling thunder. Oh, the preparations and the police and the extra cost and everything. For what? The guys went to a church service. They had a ceremony at the National War Memorial. But they had signs as well, F Trudeau. We all know what that meant. So that's what happens, folks. You offend this prime minister, that's what happens. Happened to me, can happen to you. So my question is, what should we do about Bill C-11? You still want to vote Liberal? Still want to vote NDP? Still support the Green Party? Because apparently the Green Party supports this as well. Control. That's what you see. They love to. They want to control. They don't think that. That's why. You know what? Monk takes over. Or is it Monk? Is that his name? That's taken over Twitter.
Musk, Elon Musk.
Musk. I'm sorry, Musk. Okay.
Mhm.
I don't follow American news that much, but Musk takes over Twitter, and he says he believes that democracy is the cornerstone, or freedom of speech, the cornerstone of democracy, and he's going to allow everybody on. Well, you would think that the liberals and NDP way out on the left, they would approve this. That everybody. No, that they're going crazy. They're pulling out their hair. Why? Because he's going to let everybody on. He's going to allow a real democracy, and the left is going nuts. John, what have we got?
We got a lot of comments. I got a lot of my own. I could probably fill 2 or 3 hours.
Why
with
don't you
this.
why don't
Well,
you give me your thoughts first?
I mean, okay, so you come from the talk radio side, and obviously, every word you say is under scrutiny, and always has been, always will be. I was the poo-poo fart joke guy playing, music over on Cool FM and Bob FM. But every now and then, I would lob a joke at the Sens owner, or something political even. And yes, somebody would inevitably write to the Canadian, first they write to the radio station. The radio station responds. They don't like the response. They take it to the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council. And all hell breaks loose, because God forbid it goes before the Canadian Broadcast Standards Council, because then it's a strike against you when you go to renew your license at the CRTC.
That's right.
Well, look, see, radio is in a mess of problems. All you hear is media cutback. Advertising is leaving us. The numbers are down. Revenues are down. We're having to make do with less. Well, we live in a world now, Lowell, where I can ask my smart speaker to play the radio station I'm on in Florida, and it does. And yet, the CRTC still regulates Canadian radio stations in Ottawa and Montreal, where they are prohibited from playing more than 50% hit music. 50% of what you hear has to be a song that was never a hit. It's the CRTC saying to radio, yeah, if you could play some crap for a while, that would protect the French language stations in the markets. On top of that, 35, some stations having to play 40% Canadian content when the average consumer buys roughly 8 to 12% Canadian music. Look, I'm all for that. But that's the public airwaves. That's a whole other ball of wax. What you and I are doing here, this is a private peer-to-peer connection. You pay for your internet to connect to me. I pay for my internet to connect to you. The listener viewer is paying for their internet and deciding to meet on these third-party platforms. We're not on the public airwaves. So why does this need regulation? If you or I say something that is litigious or contentious, the listener can challenge us legally if they want to.
That's right.
I mean, we are wide open to that. And isn't that how it should be for the average person? If
Absolutely.
they say something, if they say something against their boss or one of their friends or former friends, and the friend takes issue with it, should that not be something that is up for debate then in a court if it gets to that, as opposed to the CRTC saying, nope, you just can't be on?
But it's all about, John, and I've said this before, it's all about this government wanting to control everything.
Yes.
And
why? Why? With all the things that are going on in the world, why does this matter right now?
I'll tell you why. Because this is the only forum that is left that can be critical. As you know, I mean, the Trudeau ships $1.3 billion to the CBC, ships about $1 billion or close to it to other segments of the media, including even magazines and even some online shows. So very clearly, if you're getting all kinds of money, maybe you're alive because of government largesse, you're not going to be very critical of the government. So essentially, the only place where you can be critical of the government is here on the internet, podcasts, video, whatever it is, YouTube, etc. It's the only place where you can go ahead, where we are not in the pay of the government. All the rest of the media, and there are very few exclusions, are in the pay. Keep this in mind. If you are receiving government money, and most media outlets today are, then you are in the pay of the government. Not likely you're going to be highly critical of the guy that's paying you.
No, and that's where I want legislation. No media outlet should be receiving any taxpayer money whatsoever. The media is the ultimate holder to account of any government.
Precisely.
The media really is the official opposition.
And this is why much of the media is so opposed to Pierre Poilievre, because they know if Poilievre wins, that's it. No more money going out to the Toronto Star. No more money going out to the Globe and Mail, Maclean's magazine. No more money going out to the CBC. And they are scared skinny because of this. So they got the reason the government wants to stop me, stop you, and stop you, listener out there, from going on Facebook, saying what you want, because it's the only place where we can still be critical. And this they can't stand. They want to stop it. Just the same. It's not unsimilar to what our friend Putin is doing Russia. He says, no, I don't want anybody critical of me on this, so I'm going to fine you or make you disappear. Well, so far, we're not making people disappear.
No, but
Well,
he's shut down all the social media channels and controls the message on
precisely.
TV and radio and lets his people know there's no invasion happening
But you
in
see,
Ukraine.
we're a little gentler here. We're not going to shut you down unless you say something we don't agree with. We'll keep you going, but we'll control you so much that there won't be anything really negative about this government. All right, let's take some comments from
Well,
others.
let's get a word in for Shield first, and then I'll get to the comments, and that way
good
we
idea.
the last 10 minutes of the show to
I'll
dive.
tell you one place where you have total, absolute, utter freedom is in Pakenham. Okay,
Attaboy,
you just
Lowell.
cross that 5-span bridge there. It's a freedom bridge. You go, and the first place on the left is my favorite feed store for my pigeons. The 5-span feed store, and then just up the road a little bit, there is Shields, lovely little butcher shop, and one of the country's largest warehouses of appliances. Every kind of appliance, pretty well under the sun. Every price range, every size. Every they even on their website they'll even tell you in many cases the wattage, in other words how much power it's going to burn. The prices are very comparable. If you don't believe me, check them out. Check out their website, Shield Furniture and Appliances. That's www.shields SCHEELS.ca. A good spot. Good people. Yes, John.
Is it really called the Freedom Bridge, or was that just you?
Well, it's me. It's the
dramatic.
5-span bridge, but
Okay.
any 5-span bridge going into Pakenham is a freedom bridge. You're free to go across the bridge. There's no charge. It's a free bridge. Okay, go ahead.
See, now in future, the CRTC, you'll be in charge, and you'll have to make a notation to the listener that you are going to be sarcastic.
Oh, you know what?
All right.
See, this could very well happen. If I were to call it the Freedom Bridge, then you can be sure somebody would be offended. No, and that's not free. No, and I'd have.
And that's all it takes.
It's all it takes. Honest to God, folks. You don't think there are people out there? If they don't like you, they'll find anything. Go ahead, John.
I remember cracking somebody on our team cracking a joke about a pair of underwear that had a pocket inside to keep a condom. And we heard from a minister at a church, very upset, who tied that complaint up for ages. And we had to apologize on the air for an obvious joke. Anyway, freedom of speech. San says, yes, of course. You're darn right, says Eileen to freedom of speech. San, to hell with Trudeau and his censorship. Darlene, definitely free speech. Kathy, yes, we should be free to voice our concerns. Jennifer, 100% for sure. Valda, yes, Lowell, we should all be free to speak freely. And yes to everything, Lowell. Free speech, and it is about to end. Mahadi, I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Nobody can stop me from freedom of speech.
Yes, they can. I'm pointing out, if they pass C-11, you won't have freedom of speech. Well, I don't know. You might have freedom of speech. You can talk to yourself. You can talk to your mirror and have freedom of speech. But everybody else, pretty well, you'll be censored. Go ahead.
Well, until your smart speaker hears you and broadcast it.
Yeah, that's right.
Tracy's on YouTube. Tracy, I believe this is the first time we've heard from you. Welcome to the Lowell Green Show. She says Jordan Peterson has said that this is one of the most dangerous bills to our democracy.
Yes, he has and he's not the only one. Professor Gist, who is a top legal expert at Carleton University, he has spoken out time and time again. He says it's one of the most undemocratic bills that he has ever seen. Go ahead.
Let's go to text, and the number here is 613-413-2217. Lowell, the CRTC as well as the CBC are liberal. If the PCs win, I think they should defund both of them. I would also suggest to have a group assembled to police the two of them if they are allowed to continue. Having someone to keep the CBC from only supporting liberals would be nice, since we pay for the CBC, and they can oversee the CRTC's decisions, which is needed. Let's go to Barry's comment. Barry says, Trudeau wants us to bow down and get on our knees and Sieg Heil to his mentor Klaus Schwab when the World Economic Forum tries to control the world. We read that one already. Let's go to this one. Deb says,
by the way, just let me just drop a little comment here about Trudeau. Trudeau has been very vocal in his support of the Ukraine. We're shoulder to shoulder. We've sent essentially bugger all 3 howitzers, I think. But what really bothers me is that now we are seeing world leaders, including leading political figures from the United States, going to Ukraine. Where is Trudeau? Where is Freeland?
Skiing.
But seriously, if you're shoulder to shoulder All of these, the leaders of these other nations have bucked up their courage. Boris Johnson, Prime Minister of Britain, he went right there. I mean, and walked down the street without a flak jacket.
Yep.
Trudeau's nowhere to be found. And where's Freeland? Freeland, as I said this before, Freeland is playing on her Ukrainian traditions, et cetera, and heritage to score political points. Why isn't she over there? If we really are shoulder to shoulder, then how come our shoulders are still about 6,000 miles away? Go ahead, John.
May I ask, why is the Russian embassy still allowed to operate here? Why have we not kicked them out of our country?
I have no idea. I really, I just don't understand. Played lip service to this, but and I mean, we were imposing new restrictions. What, 2 months after the war started? The same situation with those who helped us in Afghanistan. We have turned our backs on them, and we have turned our backs essentially on Ukraine, and still people love them. I don't get it. Go ahead, John.
Or they're just not paying attention and don't know what to do, how to hold this government to account, how to get their voices heard. I don't know. All right, Lowell, this is an email to lowell@blasttheradio.com from Lisa. Should you and anyone else be able to say what you want? Absolutely, so long as something doesn't infringe on hate crimes legislation. I want to know what's going on.
Can I tell you something? I don't agree with hate crimes. Who decides what's hate? If I call the prime minister a son of a bitch, is that hate? You see, the problem is the prime minister gets to decide what's hate. Freedom of speech means freedom of speech. If you should no, as you've already said, there's legal recourse available. If you're slandering somebody, then you have a right to take legal recourse. That exists. I agree with that. But this hate speech, I'm sorry, I don't agree with it. You can't say, well, you have freedom of speech except this. You can't say this about this guy. You can't say this about that. That's not freedom of speech. Freedom means freedom. Freedom is very messy. Democracy is messy. They honk those horns in downtown Ottawa. That's part of freedom. It's messy. Democracy is messy. But you could use the Russian system or the North Korean system. Nothing messy about North Korea. If you just step out of line, you get shot. Simple as that. Go ahead.
The monkeys truly are running the zoo, says this texter. Damn liberal NDP coalition, we're screwed until 2025. That is Deb's comment at 613-413-2217. Let's follow that up with another text. We should be able to say anything we think, and people need to be intelligent enough to make up their own minds. If we can't say it, we certainly are going to think it.
Let me jump in. I remember it just twigged something in my mind. I used to have a favorite expression, screwed, blued, hewed, and tattooed.
Yep.
Somebody misheard this and said I was denigrating Jews. It's screwed, blued, hewed, and tattooed. Didn't understand what hewed meant, okay?
Okay.
They didn't understand the word hewed. Screwed, blued, hewed, and tattooed. Oh, what I had to go through to explain. No, this was not anti-Semitic. It was not anti-Jewish. It was hewed. Then, well, what is hewed? Oh, geez. This is the kind of crapola that we go through in radio.
Well, you were called out a few weeks ago when you used another expression of yours, hung, strung, and asked their skin pulled over their cheeks or something.
Hung, strung, put in bed in the skin of your arse.
There you go. And somebody accused you of wanting to hang people.
That's right.
But if they write a letter to the radios, this is the thing. If they write a letter to a radio station, and Lowell says that on the radio station airwaves, behind the scenes, lawyers are involved to put out. I mean, that's such a stupid and obvious, bit of sarcasm.
Well, you wonder why radio is. I'm not sure if it's dying. You say it is, but it's certainly fading.
It's changing. It's not what it was. I mean,
no.
People, why is radio's laying off and cutting and amalgamating? Podcast, the biggest pool of freedom of speech, podcast is growing by the billions of dollars every year. Why do you think that is?
Because people are saying what they want. I can remember in the early 90s, I went to CFRB in Toronto. CFRA stopped talk. So I went to CFRB, and I had the top-rated show. CFRB at that time was the most listened-to radio station in Canada.
Yes, sir.
And my show was the top show of all in Toronto during that time, the time period. But they decided that because we were getting complaints. Okay, you're going to say stuff people love. They don't want, people want to hear opinions, but there's always going to be those who complain. So they were getting complaints. So they decided they had to tone down. So they got rid of me, and well, anyway, and they began to tone down. Today, CFRB is nowhere near the top in Toronto, let alone Canada. That people, that's why huge crowds are gathering for Pierre Poilievre. He is saying something. He is standing for something, and people are flocking to him. The same. I still say that those radio stations or television that allow real opinion are still probably doing very well, but they're few and far between anymore. Go ahead, John. Sorry.
We got a ton of comments left over. So for the listener, just so you know, if we didn't get a chance to read yours on the air, or if I didn't get a chance to pop it up on the screen, it will make it to my daily email for Lowell, so he's got some reading to do tonight.
And don't forget to share, folks. This is the one thing we ask of you, okay? Share. It's the only way we have. If you think this message deserves to be listened to by a wider audience, when people discover that I'm still here, many of them will tune in. But it's up to you. Just push share, and it will broaden the audience. Thank you all. We will be back tomorrow.
The Lowell Green Show is seen and heard live around the world at 2 p.m. Eastern. Connect with us online at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Download the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Spotify, Google, and more. Ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. This is a production of blasttheradio.com.